أهلا بكل الذين ينضموا للاستماع إلى راديو بلدي، أول راديو عربي أمريكي ويعنى بقضايا العرب في المهجر. برامجنا في راديو بلدي كل يوم جمعة من 8 وحتى 9 صباحا مع ليلى الحسيني في بث حي ومباشر عبر WNZK راديو 690 AM. صباح الخير بلدي، صباح الخير لكل مستمعينا.
Welcome to Radio Baladi, the first Arab, Middle Eastern, and American simulcast radio show. Radio Baladi is broadcast every Friday morning on WNZK 690 AM from 8 until 9 Eastern Time on Good Morning Michigan with Layla Al-Husseini. Our call-in number 248-557-3300. And now, stay tuned for the best radio talk show on Arab and American issues with your host, Layla Al-Husseini.
أعزائي المستمعين، أسعد الله صباحكم. خليل هاشم من راديو بلدي. نتمنى لكم صباحا مشرقا ونهارا مباركا ونشكر استماعكم لهذا البرنامج الأسبوعي. Good morning and welcome to Radio Baladi. This is Khalil Hashim, Executive Editor via Michigan.com. I will be hosting this segment today. Radio Baladi is the leading English and Arabic radio station in North America. We thank you for listening and we wish you a wonderful morning and a great day. In the news this week, yet another storm, and some residents are still reeling from the storm, either cleaning up or trying to get their power restored. Some cities and counties are still accepting forms to help with the flood. Today we're going to be talking about President Obama's speech he delivered on Wednesday, outlining his plan to destroy ISIS. For those who are not familiar with ISIS, that's the group that is claiming the Islamic State in Syria and Iraq. What kind of a plan it is, how effective, and are we going yet to another war? To listen to the program, you can dial 702-489-0120 or directly dial 248-557-3300 from inside the U.S. With us this hour, we have Dr. Jawad, who is a frequent host of Radio Baladi and an analyst and an expert on the Middle East. Good morning, Dr. Jawad.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Nice to have you. And also we have Dr. Admin Gharib. Dr. Gharib is a Lebanese-American scholar at the American University in Washington and a professor at George Washington University's Elliott School of International Affairs. Good morning, Dr. Gharib.
Good morning.
And it's a pleasure to have you with us, gentlemen. Before we start, just very quickly, it seems that President Obama delivered a rare primetime speech on Wednesday. He seemed like he was trying to, reassure the American people that he is still the reassuring chief, rather, and then that he outlined and tried to explain to the American people what ISIS is, what the Washington Post called ISIS 101. And that this is not Iraq, that we're not really going into yet another war. And he is determined to do it, and America is the number one country. And let's start with Dr. Gharib. And what do you think of the speech?
Well, basically, the president has been under a great deal of pressure, both from his left and his right, to do something. He is pressure also, especially from what you might call the neoconservatives, the Republican hawks in the Senate and in the House, who want to see action. He has also come under pressure as a result of the execution by ISIS of two American journalists, which is an issue that has angered many Americans, as you know, as well as the timing or the coincidence of these events, all of these events occurring on the anniversary of the 9/11 terrorist attack. So as a result of this, there has been, the president has both come under pressure to do something to show that he's trying to help. There is also pressure from some of the regional actors, but at the same time also he has benefited from this coincidence in order because there is a greater receptivity. People remember the terrible attacks that took place, and so are more willing to support.
You're talking about September 11.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
9/11 attacks, and so as a result of this, he is basically now he has more support. Although there is still a great deal of reluctance, there is a great deal of questioning on different parts of his strategy, as well as on the basic issue of becoming involved again in another war or another conflict in the Middle East, where Americans have been involved for such a long time, especially in Iraq for over 2 decades, and the cost of that has been extremely high, with somewhere around close to $10 billion. It's not the $2 or $3 billion that we often hear. There was a study that was done about a year ago at Brown University by 2 of the top economists, and they said that the wars of the war on terror, the war in Afghanistan, and the war in Iraq have cost already somewhere between $8.5 to $9 billion, and in fact, the cost is going to be much higher than that.
Yeah. Before we go on, I'd just like to ask, I know that you're only staying with us for 10 minutes, Dr. Gharib. I'd like to ask Dr. Jawad very quickly, what are your thoughts about the speech?
Well, about the what, I'm sorry?
About the speech, President Obama's speech on Wednesday.
I think the speech itself was good. I like the idea of a regional coalition, because without those people around the area, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, United Arab Emirates, Turkey, and the rest of them, there is very little you can do, especially when it comes to trying to cut off the funds, trying to secure the borders to stop foreign terrorists from crossing into Syria and Iraq. And also there is a symbolic meaning, very important, and that is the Sunni countries themselves are standing up. They are rejecting the Sunni ideology claimed by ISIS. But on the other hand, I must say that I'm very skeptical about the potential action in Syria. I'm sure that the strategy will work fine. In Iraq, it will work effectively. It will work quickly, simply because you have troops on the ground. These troops belong to the Iraqi Central Army and also the Peshmerga in Kurdistan. But what is he going to do exactly in Syria? Only strikes, that's not going to get anything done. And he is planning then to train moderate opposition forces in Syria. The training will take place in Jordan and Saudi Arabia. The training will take at least 1 year. I suggest that the best way, since the president, is not planning to remove President Bashar al-Assad by force anytime soon, and that he is seeking a political solution for the crisis in Syria, then I would suggest that he cooperate with Bashar al-Assad to get the job done.
That's an excellent point. That's Dr. Jawad. And Dr. Gharib, is the plan sound enough? Is it a good plan?
Well, I think a great deal will depend also on the plan. Sounds fine on paper. However, when it comes to implementation, you're going to have challenges. You're going to have problems. There's no doubt that the U.S. has, huge military capabilities, technological capabilities, which would allow it to do a great deal in the region and get certain things done. However, there are serious problems. I agree that what Dr. Jawad said, I think, is very correct. When it comes to Iraq, the situation in Iraq is much easier. although I'm not so sure that it's going to be as easy as some people think. On the one hand, you have, it's true that you have the Iraqi armed forces, you have militias, Shiite militias actually also involved. We saw them involved in the breaking the siege actually of the town of Anerli, a Turkoman town in northern Iraq. And also there was involvement from the Peshmergas as well. So at least you have some forces there. You also have the Kurdish forces. The problem, however, is as we saw when ISIS moved towards Mosul, there were almost three divisions of the Iraqi army collapsed. The same thing, the Peshmergas were not able to protect the Yazidi communities when their areas were attacked. The same thing happened in several of the towns, Christian towns in the Nineveh plains. So as a result of this shows that there are limitations to the capabilities of these forces. Yes, when you had U.S. air power helping, they were able to make some advances.
So the question is, can it be done from the air?
Exactly. It cannot be done just from the air. The air could provide a great deal of help, but the point that I'm saying, it's going to take time to train the Iraqi forces, be they the Kurdish forces or the Iraqi government forces. This will take quite a bit of time. You need to send them, also provide them with supplies, with the equipment that they're needed, and then they might be much more effective. The second thing is that in the past, if you remember, the United States at one time had 150,000 troops and almost an equal number of contractors on the ground in Iraq, and they were not successful in putting down the
rebellion,
opposition, the resistance to U.S. forces and to the Iraqi government at that.
And what's really on everybody's mind is, what have we done in Iraq? It's still a mess. 10 years and all the billions and now we're going to get involved in Syria, and it's still a mess.
That's the main point. I mean, in a way, that's an excellent point, because what you have seen in Iraq is that while it was true the United States was able to move quickly, bring down a regime that was considered hostile to the United States, hostile to Israel, hostile to some of the neighboring countries, and this was done relatively quickly. Yes, Iraq was under one of the severest sanctions in history for almost 12 years before this war took place, so they were not able to resist. However, as I predicted at that time, that if the U.S. forces go in, and if there is an Iraqi resistance that's going to emerge, as I predicted, the United States was going to face serious difficulties. And that's exactly what happened, because when the U.S. went in there was opposition that emerged very quickly. The policies which were pursued, the dismantling of the Iraqi Air Force, the shutting down of some of the public sector industries, which drove hundreds of thousands of workers out from their jobs. The same thing with other jobs in the government. So millions of Iraqis lost their jobs, lost opportunities.
Before I let you go, Dr. Gharib, I know you have to go in very few minutes. It seems to me that the U.S. is kind of, and some people feel this way, that's kind of guilty, along with, Israel and other places in the other countries in the area, for trying to create an environment where they thought that we can let all the extremists, gather in one place, kill each other while we can watch, and then we can really manage that conflict. But now it seems like with ISIS, this is, the snake they created now is trying to bite everybody. Is that? Do you share some of these thoughts?
There are two views, at least two. There are many others, but basically there's the view that says sort of a conspiracy theory that the United States and Israel benefit from the chaos in the region. But I think there have been, I'm not sure I buy into that argument.
And it's not about whether they benefit or not. It's the fact that they help to create this environment where they hope that the theory goes, that they hope that, the extremists will kill each other, then we can just watch them kill each other.
In a way, this has been this policy of divide and rule has been there since the Roman Empire and long before that. But the Roman Empire was the one that really consecrated it into an art form in a way. So this has been done in the past. What I'm saying, however, is that sometimes, even if there were the best of intentions, when people don't understand what they are doing, they don't understand the region they are dealing with very well, and they don't understand that there are consequences to actions. It's not enough to defeat an army, bring down a regime, have regime change, and then you think that we are going to be able to bring democracy overnight.
It doesn't happen that way. I'm sorry. Yeah, it does not happen that way.
Exactly.
Democracy takes a lot of work and institutions and mentality. Absolutely. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into our first break, and please stay with us and stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Senabriku for all your Metro Detroit real estate needs. 248-755-3494. Whether buying or selling, short sales, foreclosure, or investment for both business and residential, call Senabriku, owner and broker of St. Jude Realty, at 248-755-3494. If you're facing legal problems, it's time to get the right attorney working for you. Ziad Gossett is experienced in foreclosure defense, eviction, and real estate law, as well as immigration matters, workers' comp, bankruptcy, business law, and all criminal matters. With attorney Ziad Gossett in your corner, you won't have to fight alone. Call 248-680-7300. That's 248-680-7300.
Ziad brand. Quality products from our family to yours. Ziad Brothers Importing offers the finest quality products, including brands like Sultan, Kraft, Nestle, Hook, Rico Picon, Donna, and many more. Ask your retailer to carry these fine products because you deserve the very best. For more information, visit our website at www.ziad.com. That's www.ziad.com. Ziad, quality products from our family to yours.
Welcome back to Radio Baladi, and to listen to the program, you can dial 702-489-0120 or directly dial 248-557-3300. And to really join us with the discussion, I believe Dr. Gharib has left us. We thank him dearly for being with us this morning. And Dr. Jawad, you mentioned a really an excellent point, which is you really can't bomb your way into Syria. You have to talk to the government there and see what can be done. Could you please elaborate on that point?
Yes, I'm just being realistic. Now, the president's policy is clear in terms of trying to resolve the Syrian crisis by political means. I know that Geneva II has failed, but it can be revived. Negotiations can take place between the opposition and the government. But right now, it looks like Mr. Obama's priority, and also the priority of many other players, actors, countries in the region, is to defeat ISIS, to dismantle ISIS. So from a practical and realistic point of view, the way to do it now, since you need ground forces to help your airstrike, since you are doing it effectively in Iraq, having ground forces, having the Iraqi security forces or Iraqi army, and also the Peshmerga in the north, and they are doing a fine job because now they are getting more recent, more modern equipment, arms, having an air cover. You just replicate that in Syria, and the only difference would be, which is very sensitive, of course, a lot of people wouldn't like it, is to cooperate with the government forces on the ground.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, the other thing is that, but before we go any further, we have a caller, and Jerry is on the line with us. Good morning, Jerry.
Good morning, Mr. Khalil Hashim.
Good morning.
Yeah, Najib Habba with you, and I want to salute Dr. Abdul Jawad and Dr. Gharib.
Thank you, thank you.
Shukran. Mr. Khalil Hashim,
yes.
About the latest meeting in the region through the host of the United States. I do believe Saudi Arabia or Qatar and all the countries who they are involved in this, let's say, the hazard security issues in the Middle East. I did notice that Turkey was not involved or cooperate with helping the United States to use their airbase in Turkey. I do understand there is a number of Turkish citizens held by the terrorist organization of ISIS. Don't you think there is something fishy about Turkish authority or government, why they are not fully
cooperating? Yeah. What do you think, Dr. Jawad?
That's a bigger question. Do you think, Mr. Khalil Hashim, this is a payback by Turkish for the sour relationship between Turkey and Israel about the incident about Gaza about 2-3 years ago? Do you think they are paying us back as a punishment? And thank you very much to you.
Thank you.
And to Dr. Ataf Abdul Jawad and Dr. Gharib.
Thank you so much. Well, it is a complicated region. And what do you think, Dr. Jawad?
I think it's understandable when you have 49 of your diplomats taken hostages and you are trying to get them released, you're trying to secure their safety. Any responsible government would do whatever it takes to secure their safety. So it is understandable why the Turkish government is taking that stand. But I think, on the other hand, that Ankara will be contributing help, some sort of help, but only behind closed doors. And the Turkish bases are.
Why do you think that happened? I mean, the caller has a point. I mean, you know, Turkey should be a big part of this.
Well, the Turkish has been a big part of the effort to strengthen the opposition in Syria. Turkey has a very vital interest in seeing Syria as a stable country because, as you know, they are neighbors. I'm not sure, I'm not saying I'm 100% sure that Turkey will eventually take part in any effort in the current situation. But while I understand the dilemma, having 49 of your people in danger, I do believe that some sort of accommodation can take place, but only behind closed doors, so that Turkey can contribute, but also would not jeopardize the safety, the lives of its own citizens.
Absolutely. We have Bassam on the line. Bassam has a question. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. I want to make a point.
Very briefly, go.
Yeah. In the past, when the rebels in Syria used to ask for anti-aircraft missiles, the U.S. would deny them that because they're afraid that those missiles would go to extremists like ISIS. And now the U.S. is saying that they're going to arm the rebels in Syria in order to fight ISIS. So there is a contradiction here, knowing that they know before that those weapons could go to ISIS. So in a way, indirectly, the U.S. is going to arm the ISIS without being official. And on the other side, they're going to fight them through the air. And you can say the same thing about the past when they had those ISIS rebels and they were afraid of getting anti-aircraft missiles, but they still armed the rebels with non-anti-aircraft missiles, which means that they know that those weapons would go to ISIS, and it was okay
and some of them have gone to ISIS.
Right.
Okay, so it is a contradiction, basically.
That's what I'm saying. There is a contradiction. It's like the U.S. is in a way know that those weapons will go to ISIS and still give them the weapons, and they're going to still doing that now, knowing that they're going to go to ISIS. So it's like there is contradiction here. On one side, they're going to get weapons indirectly, and on the other side, they're going to fight them. Huh? So that's why I think the intention is not really good.
Sounds good.
The intention of the U.S. is not really good here. It's not they're going to fight ISIS. They're going to just go to war, as Obama put it. It's going to be open-ended war that will never be over in order to have a foot in that area, especially in Syria. And the other thing is that when they say there is international coalition and then all the countries involved are really subordinate to the U.S., that suggests that the intention is not really to fight ISIS, but just to get a foot in the region.
What do you think, Dr. Jawad? Is it an open-ended war? Thanks, Bassem.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Well, it looks like it's going to take a long time, and even President Obama seems to acknowledge that. He seems to say that this is, even though it's limited in nature, it's not a wide war. But I think that the fact that the training of opposition forces in Syria might take a year at least. It just that this in itself is an indication that you are not going to start the process in Syria before those guys are well trained and can conduct the operation.
Yeah.
So,
and that's not really as easy as it sounds. And we're going to go back to that point, Dr. Jawad, as soon as we come back from a short break. Thank you.
Jumana Kayrus. You've seen her images on giant billboards across the metro. Jumana Kayrus. You've seen her images on buses across the city. Now get to know Jumana Kayrus.
The war broke out in my home country, Lebanon. I was 11 years old, and I saw a lot of bloodshed and inequality and poverty. You can't grow up in an environment like that and not be affected by it and not want to make a difference. I graduated from Yale University with a master's in ethics. I speak 4 languages. It has always been innate in me fighting for the underdog and trying to do whatever it is I can to make a difference in the world.
Let Jumana Kayrus protect your rights. Call the law offices of Jumana Kayrus at 1-866-YOUR-RIGHTS, extension 100, or visit yourrights.com.
مؤسسة الحياة للإغاثة والتنمية في مدينة ساوثفيلد في ولاية ميشيغان، المؤسسة الرائدة في العمل الإغاثي والإنساني. مؤسسة الحياة ومنذ 20 سنة تقدم العون للفقراء والمحتاجين والمتضررين بسبب الكوارث الطبيعية أو الحروب في شتى أنحاء العالم. كما تقوم مؤسسة الحياة بكفالة الأيتام والعوائل الفقيرة وحفر آبار المياه في مناطق الحاجة، وأيضا تقوم مؤسسة الحياة بتزويد المشافي والمستوصفات الصحية بالأدوية والمعدات الطبية وإنشاء مدارس وعيادات طبية في أقطار عديدة من العالم. ومؤسسة الحياة مرخصة للعمل في الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية، وجميع التبرعات معفاة من الضرائب. اتصلوا بمؤسسة الحياة للإغاثة والتنمية على رقم الهاتف المجاني 1-800-827-3543 أو زوروا موقعهم الإلكتروني على www.lifeusa.org.
Welcome back to Radio Baladi. To listen to the program, you can dial 702-489-0120 or directly dial 248-557-3300. We're discussing the speech delivered by President Obama where he vowed to destroy ISIS. With us is Dr. Atif Jawad, and also going to be joined by Delinda. Delinda Hanley is going to join us. She's the news editor of the Washington Report. Good morning, Ms. Hanley.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me today.
Absolutely. And, Dr. Jawad, before we went to the break, we were talking about, this is not as easy as it sounds, arming the rebels in Syria and see what happens. And, sounds like, it's going to be making the war in Syria more perpetual. And you brought another idea earlier, which makes a lot of sense to me. And I also like to remind listeners of the R2P. R2P is a provision of the United Nations in which it would allow the United Nations to get involved and then hold discussions with the government and hold discussions with the group and try to find a political solution to the problem in Syria. It's been going on for 3 years and doesn't seem that there is really a military solution there. And the longer it drags on, more players are entering the picture like ISIS and others, and it's getting more complicated. So again, Dr. Jawad, this is not as easy as it sounds.
It is not. And the U.S. would be well advised perhaps to start by cutting off supply lines, communication lines between ISIS in Syria and ISIS in Iraq. This way, you isolate the group's geographic location in each country. But the crucial point here is not just to cut off supply lines, but also cut off funding. So the funding is coming, unfortunately, from some Arab countries, neighboring countries, and also secure the borders of Saudi Arabia, the neighboring countries, because a great number of foreign terrorists are able to cross over into Syria and Iraq. So these are three immediate and very critical steps that need to be done immediately. They don't need to be put on hold. But the training and being effective in the operations in Syria, I think that will take time.
Wonderful. Ms. Hanley, I also want to welcome you again to the program, and I'd like to remind our listeners that not only that Ms. Hanley is the news editor of the Washington Report, that you lived in the Middle East for a while and you're very familiar with the area. Is that correct?
Yes. In fact, I lived in Syria when I was a girl, and Lebanon, and Iraq, and I think I got kind of upset during one radio show where I joined you because I just kept thinking of American bombs landing on the adults now, of children I used to play with, and I'm kind of a pacifist, I'm afraid, but sure. I definitely agree with. I've been listening to Edmund Grebe and Dr. Jawad, and it's a mess. And we need to be involved, but I think we can do better being a facilitator, using diplomacy instead of bombs, and some of our techniques that the information, stopping the information and ending the supply lines and funding. That's the kind of thing we can do behind scenes, and bombs don't necessarily accomplish very much.
So basically you're hinting at funding to ISIS. Funding to ISIS is suspected. Some countries in the area are funding ISIS. So we should really focus on that first, because if we cut off the funding, we may be, countering ISIS better than dropping bombs. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying, and we really need a buy-in from Arab countries. This is a regional problem. The regional coalition is much more essential than American, bombs and supplying arms.
What part of the speech really, you didn't like?
I hate hearing people referred to as cancers and things. I was not convinced. Let's put it that way. Okay. And
cancers in regard to what? To ISIS?
No, I'm not convinced that.
No. You mentioned the word cancer before.
Oh yeah, ISIS.
Yeah.
And we need to eradicate cancers and stuff.
Yeah.
That's just dehumanizing people, and I don't think it does anyone a favor. And you know what? Another repercussion that I don't think Dr. Garib or Dr. Jawad mentioned is the ramifications here at home. Okay, Dr. Garib mentioned the $10 billion cost, and just think what we could do with that money here. People are in bad shape still. I live near Baltimore and see the slums there. We really need to concentrate on social ills at home too. But aside from that, there's another ramification. I went to a really important press conference held by American Muslims united against ISIS. They were imams and community leaders meeting at the National Press Club on September 10th. And they were all united against ISIS and saying extremism does a very bad number on American Muslims at home here in the States.
Sure.
Americans just jumble everyone together, and suddenly American Muslims are going to be under the microscope again. Just like it's just kind of hopeless. Imams, are trying to make sure their young people don't join ISIS. So they're calling ISIS a cult, which is, it sounds like it is.
Sure.
They're violent extremists. They have nothing to do with Islam. One imam from Masjid Muhammad Talib Sharif asked the media to refer to the group as the anti-Islamic state instead of the Islamic state.
Sure. They are speaking in the name of Islam, and it seems to be a Muslim problem. It's good that more and more imams and organizations in the West are speaking against ISIS. But in a better world, it would seem to be this is a Muslim problem and a regional problem. Why wouldn't Muslims and the regional problem get together and solve the issue there, Dr. Jawad?
Well, you're talking about a cultural issue here. Muslims and Arabs have never been able to do anything effective when it comes to their own problems. The simplest solution for us, and I'm saying for us being part of them, is to blame others for our problems. There is always the conspiracy theory. There is always,
and there are a lot of those.
Let me just, on a lighter note here, let's just take the simple daily example of Utubis Fatni. A lot of people, I come from Egypt, so when you miss the bus, when you miss the bus, it's whose mistake is it? It's not that you are being late. That's why you missed the bus. No, it's the driver's mistake. He did not wait for you. So this is a long-term problem, and it's related to the kind of education that we have in the region. It's related to what kind of religion, what we learn at schools and all that.
How can we change that?
It's long term, and it's happening, but it will take a long time. Now that you have open borders through the internet, and education is sneaking through the internet, if not through schools and colleges in the region. So gradually, I'm just being a little optimistic here. Hopefully, in the next 300 years, we'll take care of that problem.
What really gets some people is the fact that ISIS has been killing people, beheading and abusing for a long time, but we didn't really get involved until 2 American journalists, were beheaded. Did we wait? Did America wait too long to really say something about it? Either one.
Are you asking me or
either one? Either one. You can both.
Well, I'll just jump in and say that's correct. ISIS has killed way more Muslims than Christians or anyone else, and destroyed mosques. I mean, it's definitely affecting Muslims more than Christians. So did we wait too long? I think the only thing that gets Americans' attention is when an American is involved. And maybe that gives the cover to get more involved too. Yeah,
but I think don't you think we're kind of walking away from doing the right thing? Doing the right thing is we have to speak up when something is wrong. We don't have to wait until it gets to our doors. This way, it doesn't have to get to our doors. It just kind of make sense. What do you think, Dr. Jawad?
Well, a great number of people in the Middle East and the Muslim world still believe that if you are not Muslim, you deserve to be killed. And this, unfortunately, is being taught and the Katatib, or whatever they call them, and elsewhere. And there is still a great number of Muslims who believe in the caliphate and the revival of Muslim glories and that kind of stuff. But as far as the U.S. is concerned, yes, of course, the U.S. did not act until those two innocent American journalists were slaughtered that way. And why should the U.S. have intervened earlier? The U.S. had no fight, and with whatever, they were not going to be the policeman, and for every quarrel, for every fight, small or big, in the region. Simply because
why not? I mean, there are a lot there are a lot at stake here. We have a lot of interest there. There's the oil there. There's stability of the area. It would seem that managing the conflicts there is in the interest of the U.S. because the other thing is that I want to bring out here is that it doesn't seem that we're learning from history. We've done the same thing in Afghanistan. We ignored it until we end up with 9/11. And now we did the same thing in Syria and Iraq. We ignored them until we end up with, the death of two innocent journalists. It seems like we're not learning from history.
Yes, in a sense you are right. But then again, remember that the U.S. is just concluding two big wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And the policy, the attitude has been to, wind up and get out of those wars. And the American people did not give enough support to have another war, an expanded war. And but on the other hand, the point is the catalyst for this. When you talk about the catalyst for U.S. action right now, and talking about seeing those two Americans slaughtered, and why the U.S. didn't act before, I think the U.S. has a very good reason to act right now, and it should. And it should act militarily. There is a message that has to be sent that when you kill innocent Americans, there is a response.
Yeah, there's another point, though. There's another point, Dr. Jawad. Being number one country in the world carries a responsibility, and part of the responsibility is to manage these conflicts because you can't. Whenever you want, say, "Oh, I'm the leader of the world," and then when you don't want it, I'm not. There's a responsibility there.
Well,
because if we've done a lot of
Yeah.
diplomacy before, we don't have to get to conflict. This is what diplomacy is.
There is one problem with that, and the U.S., of course, as we know, is number one, and it does intervene in whenever there is a humanitarian issues, an earthquake here and there. Bosnia, remember, we did take part. But the thing is, you also have to remember that the U.S. is damned if she does, and it is damned if she doesn't. You get the world split whenever the U.S. intervenes or take action anywhere. Some people will say, "Oh, and who is appointing you the policeman of the world? Why are you interfering in our domestic or internal affairs?" Now, if the U.S. doesn't interfere, they're going to say, "Oh, well, you see, you talk about human rights and you're ignoring what's happening. Why don't you take action?"
Sure.
So
Well, what I'm talking about is consistency. What I'm talking about is, the essence of diplomacy is you don't have to get to a conflict. What do you think, Ms. Hanley?
I mean, I think that there is not one size fit all. You really have to examine each conflict. Is it a civil war? Is it something we can help with? I think Obama has been very careful and slow to react in a good way, unlike his predecessor. It just takes real decision-making, listening to other sides. This country is so divided, he has to listen. We have to listen to each other. There's radicalism here in the United States. people thinking we should attack everyone. I mean, like Dick Cheney on the TV, he was like, let's bomb Iran while we're at it a couple days ago. You have to get a consensus in this country.
Did you expect anything else from Cheney? I mean,
but it was just amazing.
Yes.
But America does have to have some skin in the game, or it can't unite.
Whether we like it or not,
country.
we're part of that world.
Yeah.
We manage those conflicts. We better manage it well. We're going to come back. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back.
If you're facing legal problems, it's time to get the right attorney working for you. Ziad Gossett is experienced in foreclosure defense, eviction, and real estate law, as well as immigration matters, workers' comp, bankruptcy, business law, and all criminal matters. With attorney Ziad Gossett in your corner, you won't have to fight alone. Call 248-680-7300. That's 248-680-7300. Senabriku for all your Metro Detroit real estate needs. 248-755-3494. Whether buying or selling, short sales, foreclosure, or investment for both business and residential, call Senabriku, owner and broker of St. Jude Realty, at 248-755-3494.
Welcome back to Radio Belady. We are discussing the speech by President Obama where he vowed to destroy ISIS. To share your thoughts with us and to call us, you can call us at 248-557-3300. You can also dial our free number, which is 702-489-0120. Before we continue, we have Najib again on the line. Very quickly, Najib, go ahead, please.
Mr. Khalil Hashim,
yes.
Sorry to bother you again.
That's okay.
But just to your distinguished guests, Dr. Abdul Jawad and Miss Linda Hanley. Hi, Miss Linda Hanley. Yeah, Mr. Hashim, they say always the history repeats itself.
Yeah.
I do remember over 2 decades ago, during the Gulf War and the issue conflict between Saddam Hussein's regime, the former Iraqi leader, and the United States. I do remember there was a radio talk show run by AM station 1270. Mr. Marcus Scott, he was the host, and he invited a former CIA official. And I addressed my question to the former CIA. I said, sir, do you tell me the CIA as a very strong intelligence agency in the world, do you tell me the CIA was sleeping on the job when President Saddam Hussein of Iraq was building a huge military machine? And the answer was, Mr. Jerry, Mr. Najib Habba, I cannot answer this question. The only person who will answer you is the President of the United States, Mr. George Bush. So I just want to say, Mr. Hashim, is the history
very quickly, please,
itself that the CIA is sleeping again on the job when ISIS doing and expand and getting stronger, and especially when I heard from President Obama to say that this issue with ISIS will take a long time, maybe 3 years, maybe more. So just tell me, are they sleeping on the job or what? And thank you very much.
You're welcome. Dr. Jawad, what do you think? Are they sleeping on the job, or this is another conspiracy theory?
No, it's not a conspiracy. The CIA has been monitoring the situation in Iraq. They have less capabilities to do that in Syria for understandable reasons, but they saw the writings on the wall, and the main point here is that whatever was happening with ISIS growing and spreading, it had not at that point reached or represented a threat to American vital interests. And we have to remember that what contributed to the strength of ISIS, and I'm not saying ISIS is a strong military force. It is strong by default. because in terms of the weakness of the Iraqi army and confronting them, lack of proper weapons with the Peshmerga in the north. But what I am saying is the U.S. Determined that at that point initially, ISIS did not represent a direct threat to U.S. interest, did not represent a threat to the homeland security. And that was initially the case. And the U.S. looked at ISIS at the beginning as an Iraqi problem because the outgoing Prime Minister, Nouri al-Maliki, as we all know, was being accused of, fomenting Sunni anger in the country, which contributed to the rise of ISIS. So, no, I don't think it's a conspiracy. I don't think the CIA was sleeping on its ears, as we say in Arabic. But I think right now President Obama is probably moving in the right direction.
We received an email from Kelly Hayes Raitt. She has started a petition asking and urging President Obama to consider non-military actions to stop ISIS. And her petition is on Move On, and there's a long link here. We can't really read it, but you can check on Move On and check the name Kelly Hayes Raitt. She wants to urge President Obama to consider non-military actions to stop ISIS. Ms. Handley, can that be done non-militarily?
I mean, I think they've been monitoring ISIS for a long time. They probably have people in the ranks who are, double agents or something. I think there are a lot of ways, aside from just dropping bombs, to stop this. ISIS got powerful quite quickly, quite recently, because of its kidnapping and getting large ransom for returning people and capturing all those Iraqi weapons. It was just an ideology, really, with just a few people until recently. So I think we haven't been sleeping on the job, but we are wide awake now. I guess your concern is the innocent people that are going to die in the process, and we're not guaranteed that dropping those bombs are really going to solve the issue. Is that correct? That's right. And will it just double the problem? Because every time a person is killed, of course, the whole family unites against the people who dropped those bombs.
Yeah. And what boggles everyone's mind is that why is ISIS being so successful of garnering too much land? I mean, they go into towns and they take them over. Are the local population helping ISIS? Dr. Jawad?
In part, yes, at least initially. As I mentioned earlier, there was the Sunni grievance in Iraq against the Shiite Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki. Right or wrong, he was being perceived as, suppressing the Sunni population there. So there was sympathy and a willingness to cooperate and help ISIS in Iraq. We have seen that clearly in the initial stages in the north. But I don't think ISIS is militarily strong. They are strong. They managed to take territory simply because in the initial stages in Iraq, Iraqi security forces abandoned their position. They left their arms, weapons, equipment behind, and just ran away. That's
gotta be on the mind of everybody now. I mean, we're trying to really arm the Iraqis, arm the some people in Syria, and then they go ahead and abandon them, give them to ISIS. This has got to be something on everybody's mind right now.
I think that's the plan right now. The plan is the president was waiting for a new government in Iraq to form, and also the government would have to show, a greater empathy with its Sunni population in Iraq. And then the alliance, international alliance, NATO, and other allied countries are beginning now to support the Peshmerga and the Iraqi army with equipment, intelligence, and guidance. And we'll have to see. So I'm more optimistic about the operation in Iraq, but we have to wait and see what might happen in Syria.
You know, one thing that I would like to see more of it was, recently about 50 people gathered in Dearborn, in this area where there are hundreds of thousands of Muslims, and to speak against ISIS. I would have loved to see a lot more people, and I would like to see that Muslims are really taking matters into their own hands in a way to really understand that this is a Muslim problem. I mean, ISIS is a Muslim problem. It needs to be solved by Muslims. And Muslims in the West here have a responsibility of speaking up against all this injustices being done in the Middle East and in the name of Islam. Yes, there has been some meetings and there has been imams getting together and saying we're against ISIS, and we see it a lot more, and a lot more organizations are speaking up. I just think that there needs to be a lot more done. They need to really rally the public, against ISIS, take back Islam to where it was, which is peace, to be more peaceful, focus more on peace, and stay away from politics.
I think a lot of groups are getting together and speaking out, and I don't think our media here is giving them a chance to show people that they are speaking out.
What I'm talking about is masses, I mean, if 50,000 people in Michigan get together for a demonstration against ISIS, I think the media will have no choice but to cover it. I do agree there has been some, in some areas where the media, ignored them. But 50 people in an area like Michigan, I think more needs to be done. I think what happened was a courageous move, and it was a good start. But more needs to be done. Don't you think?
I think your radio show will provoke more to be done. I hope.
I hope so. Oh, I really want to welcome, thank you both for being on the program. And, this is something that's going to take, as Dr. Jawad said, it's going to take a lot of time. I want to thank Dr. Gharib for being on the program, Dr. Jawad, Ms. Hanley. And, this is, the Middle East has been a mess for some time, and it's going to continue to be a mess. And I strongly believe that it will not get better unless we change ourselves. The change has to start with us. Thank you so much. We thank you for listening, and we thank you for being with us this morning on Friday morning, and have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.